We're so excited to have you guys join us today. I want to start with just a few introductions. So who am I? Who is the voice behind this screen here? My name is Jamie Peterson, and I am one of ESGI's customer success managers. I spent 21 years in education as a K-1 teacher and as an elementary administrator. I'm thrilled to be here today to help moderate this. And we're excited to have Adam and Holly here. Adam is an educator and speaker and author of over 20 years of experience. He's known for his dynamic teaching style and leadership, and Adam has provided professional development globally and is dedicated to creating equitable schools throughout culturally responsive practices. Everyone still hearing me good? Holly, Adam, good? Fabulous.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive in. And Holly's an assistant professor of education with over 25 years of experience as well in early literacy. She's completing her PhD in reading and literacy, and Holly's so passionate about helping teachers bridge research and practice, especially in teaching children with dyslexia and learning challenges. So we're gonna dive right in, guys, and we're gonna, our first question for tonight is a little bit about how the leadership's role in driving the science of reading. So from a leadership perspective, what are the key shifts in literacy instruction and driven by the science of reading that you think school and district leaders really need to understand?
Oh, you want to kick that one off? Want me to start that?
Yeah, you go ahead.
All right, sounds good. Well, first of all, I want to just welcome everyone tonight. I hope you guys are having a fantastic evening. Obviously, you got a little bit of an intro, but just for everyone to know, Holly and I have been friends for many, many years. We've worked together at several conferences and presented together around the country, and we are very excited to be here tonight with our dear friends at ESGI. As we talk about leadership and literacy and science of reading, I think many of you listening right now who have been in education for at least a handful of years know very well that we go through cycles. Right? We have all been in that room before where we are presented with the next best thing. It's the new curriculum. It's the new script that we're expected to implement in our school. We've all been there. Personally, what I appreciate about the science of reading in particular is that it's not the next curriculum. And that's important to remember, because I know just a handful of years ago when I was with my staff and we first got trained, I'm in North Carolina, by the way, and the entire state of North Carolina got a grant for every elementary school teacher and administrator to be trained on the science of reading using letters. And I know one of the first fears out of everyone was, oh man, we just got a new curriculum, now we got to get another one. And that was quickly debunked. And so I think from my standpoint as a leader, it's important to embrace this not as the next curriculum, as the thing that's going to be gone in the next few years, but something that's going to really set our framework around the literacy instruction that we should be having in our classrooms. Now, Holly, I know, is much more in the trenches in the classroom than I am, so I know she's going to be able to take it from the classroom perspective. So Holly, what do you want to add in terms of that leadership aspect from maybe the classroom point of view?
Yeah, well, I would say that one of the most important things I think that administrators need to take into consideration is really being cautious about kind of the rollout, because honestly, what teachers are being asked to do is shift, in most cases, away from pretty much everything that they've learned in all of their training and like doing things a different way. And so number one, that's really hard, especially if you have been doing like taking a certain approach to teaching reading for a long time, which most of us that are in the trenches were trained in balanced literacy and all of that. And we have seen lots of programs come and go. So a teacher's natural reaction is, like you said, oh, it's another program. And so the first thing would be to clarify, this is not the same as all the other things that we've seen in the past. This is about really putting teachers back where they should be, which is as the most important like resource in the classroom. And this movement is about teaching teachers how our kids like physiologically learn. And then once we understand that, and that's why all this like extra training is like necessary. You can't just buy curriculum and move it in, but you have to understand how kids' brains actually learn. And we just simply did not have a lot of that information at our disposal. A lot of that information has been around on the research side, but hasn't really come into the education side in a way that we can easily understand. So help your teachers get that PD that understands how kids learn differently than we thought that they used to, and that once they can get teachers to understand that, then I think the buy-in will be natural and teachers will want to shift their instruction because they'll understand why. I think the pushback that usually comes is that we get a new program and you just think, you know, why can't I just keep doing what I did before? If you educate your teachers on what we've learned about how the brain learns differently than we've been teaching it, then they're going to want to embrace the new type of instruction because they're going to understand why it's going to work better. So I would say make that your focus, and that's not about the program. It's about like the new knowledge and learning how kids actually learn. So based on science, not just preferences.
So Holly, you know, as you're saying that, I'm having PTSD a little bit, and I know I'm not the only one in the room that has it, because you know what, 10, 15 years ago, I was thinking, I was hearing, I was being told the same thing with balanced literacy. I was in it before I was an administrator, I was a classroom teacher. I went through balanced literacy training as a teacher. I went through it as an administrator, and we're talking 5 to 7 years ago. So we're not talking eons and decades ago. I mean, this is recently. In my mind, you know, I'm trying to think, all right, what's the difference, right? And for me, and you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, but for me, the science of reading is teaching how to read. It's not because I know the big thing with balanced literacy was like, hey, the kids are just going to figure it out. We expose them to some pictures, they're going to sound it out or they're going to figure it out based on the context. And some kids, it certainly made sense. I mean, it made sense to some kids right away.
About research, about 20% of kids, if they're just exposed to things, their brain is like all of our brains are statistical learning machines, but about 20% of kids, their brains will start to see those patterns and pick it up. But there's a good 75% of kids who won't intuitively pick it up. That's correct. So
yeah, and so I get it though, and you know, we asked for some questions before we did this webinar tonight. And I saw a specific question that really stood out to me, and it said, how do we convince, or how do we kind of shift teachers who are still on the balanced literacy board over? And it's not easy, because look, all right, so I'm going to go put on my principal hat again for a second, right? I can go about this one of two ways. I can do it by force, right? Because I'm the principal and I can say, here's what we're doing. But I know in reality, compliance doesn't always give me true engagement in the process. So if I'm going to do something just because I have to, I may not put my heart behind it. So I think we do need that professional development, seeing it to believe it type opportunities in order to really convince those teachers who may not be on board right now, which again, I get it. But I don't know, I think we need to see more of the seeing is believing, and here's what it looks like, here's why it can work.
Yeah, and that is the benefit of it being like the science of reading is, you know, the difference between the science of reading and like balanced literacy is balanced literacy was based on a lot of observation and a lot of like preferences. And so where that came from is that through observation, teachers, educators, people in the field saw that, you know, when human babies are born, you expose them to oral language and they just kind of naturally pick it up. So that whole language balanced literacy movement was like, fill your classroom with warm and cozy, pillows and all of that, and just have kids read aloud, have them do silent reading, just expose them, and then they'll pick up the written language also, because that's what happens with the spoken language. Well, the difference is that spoken language, humans are like pre-wired for that. So we do intuitively pick that up, but written language is not pre-wired in the brain at all. So it's not going to be acquired the same way. So we can't do what we thought was going to work. Now we actually have the ability to actually put kiddos in functional MRIs and see exactly how the brain is working. And we know that it's going to take explicit systematic instruction for kids to learn how this print maps on to sounds. And so again, I feel like if we do some education on, okay, how does the brain actually learn? I'm always fascinated by this because I think about doctors, and we would never let a physician out of college and practice without knowing anatomy. Yet as teachers, our #1 job is to teach kids like how to read and teach them things, which involves like literally like rewiring the brain. But why aren't we taught how the brain works? Like, so that's what the science of reading does. It tells teachers this is how information is stored in kids' brains. And so now we need to shift our instruction and do it this way instead of the other way that we used to do it. And I think if you explain that to teachers, then they get it. And then you can show them the hard data by showing them the teachers or the classrooms who have shifted, look at their rock solid proven you know, results in their, you can see it in the data. So and you can see what's not working, because right now nationally, you know, are only about 30% of our students at the 4th grade level are reading proficiently. That's a crisis. So we need to shift.
Holly and Adam, I'm just wondering, I love what you guys are saying, and I can see it from the teacher perspective. I can see it from the admin perspective. And what are some strategies that you guys have that might help those that don't have support in the classroom as they're tackling these new initiatives, as well as leaders being able to be supportive and helping reduce that teacher frustration and burnout as we're adding in these new initiatives and these new ways of thinking that might not have been, like you said, Holly, the way that they were taught. So what kind of suggestions can we give people to kind of navigate that, to maybe make that road not quite as rocky?
Yeah, one of the first things that I would say is, like, teachers are amazing. They are the hardest working group of people in any profession, I think. And so the first thing is that teachers cannot do all of this by themselves. They are working their tails off to bring instruction to life on the daily. So you need your administrative team to kind of go out and find what is the research-based resources that you can use in professional development. If you're a teacher, you know, social media is great, but make sure that you're not just following somebody who's giving you preferences. Make sure that the content that you are picking up is like actually like based in the science, I would say. And you know, find a team of people who would support you, which at Elevate will definitely do that. So if you're looking for that, you can come along and we'll support you in that. Adam, do you want to add anything?
Holly giving a shameless plug here for the conference that she and I are members of, Elevate Your Classroom, which we'll talk more about later. But I would suggest starting somewhere. You know, I talk a lot about this in when I do speeches and keynotes and stuff. I talk about this a lot in terms of culture, because people are always looking at how do I shift school culture, right? How do I change the culture of my classroom? And I always say start somewhere, because if you are a novice starting out just with a blank slate, it's really hard to go from 0 to 60 when A, you may not have the tools, the training, the time, or the ability, the capacity to take it on all at once. So now if I just switch from culture to instruction here, and of course we're talking science of reading tonight, I'm gonna again suggest start somewhere. So if that means finding one practice or routine that makes sense for you and your class and your students and what you're trying to do, start there. Get good at it. After a few weeks, if that's going well, add another layer. It's about incremental changes. All right, very, very few people are going to make that large of a change overnight. So give yourself some grace, because Holly mentioned very acutely, teachers are completely overworked and underpaid. We know this, obviously. And so let's work smarter, not harder. Take little bits. Use social media. use the resources that you do have. I hope your district at least has maybe a reading coach or a instructional coach, or maybe your school does, that can help you along the way, and find something small that you can implement. I'll say just personally, I know for my school, we started with Heggerty. Heggerty was a very simple, if you're not familiar with it, it's a daily routine. It's scripted to an extent, but it's just a 5 to 7 minute routine that teachers could easily get behind. It didn't require a lot of prep, but it was very predictable. So kindergarten.
Yep.
Yeah, so kindergarten, first, second grade, it was great, and pre-K as well. So it's great for those grades. So if you're looking to start somewhere, I'll give Heggerty a shout out, because I got to see it in action and saw how it became a very simple routine with a high impact.
Those are great suggestions. So kind of on that same path then, from your perspectives, what role does the ongoing assessment and progress monitoring play in sustaining those literacy gains that we all want to see?
Well, obviously, if you want to know something's working, you have to measure it. And I know many of you have heard this old saying, we measure what we care about. All right. And so if we care about seeing the growth of our students in reading, which I would probably assume, hopefully safely assume, many people watching this tonight do care about their student success in reading, we are going to have to measure it somehow. And unfortunately, many districts and states, you get tested maybe once, twice, 3 times a year, maybe 4 times if you do quarterly assessments. And for me, that's just not enough. I can't wait 9 weeks to see if my student has grown what I need. And so I need to see more rapid, more frequent assessments. And so for me, I mean, I've always used ESGI. I know Holly has as well. ESGI has always been good to us with just being reliable, quick assessments on, frankly, whatever we want. So if we're working on morphemes, we're working on blends, trigraphs, so it doesn't matter what we're working on, because there's an assessment that we can customize for it. So for me, something like ESGI is instrumental in the importance of progress monitoring our students' growth. Holly, what do you think?
Yeah, well, one of the big shifts that you'll see that is different about a science of reading aligned instructional approach versus like balanced literacy. Balanced literacy was kind of in a way more of a generalized type of instruction, and it would be, you didn't necessarily have a direct scope and sequence of exactly what you were teaching next, and then after that, and when kids have mastered this, it was more like, oh, pick these leveled books, kind of look through them. Yeah, we taught some phonics like here and there, but it wasn't really systematic and explicit. And so what would happen is by the end of like 2nd grade, kids would have some phonics skills, but the 1st grade teacher would know exactly what the kindergarten teacher taught, and the 2nd grade teacher wouldn't know exactly what skills like the 1st grade teacher taught. So there ended up being a lot of holes. Well, with the science of reading aligned instruction, there's always a explicit, systematic scope and sequence of skills. And I love it because basically this scope and sequence of skills goes beyond grade level. Like basically it's like, here are all the things that a good reader needs to know. And so it really doesn't matter what grade level you're at, these are the skills you need to know. And so, they obviously are in an order of kind of like progressing from easy to hard. And so what's great is that if you have that scope and sequence, you know exactly what you need to assess. Like, these are our goals to teach, so we're going to assess these things. And so one of the things that we all are dealing with as teachers is, when are we going to have time to do that, especially at the primary level? Because you can't just pass out a test and give it to 30 kids at one time. Most of it is like one-on-one, and that takes a lot of time. So how are you going to do that? I mean, my last kindergarten class, I had 32 kids. That's a lot of kids to assess. And so I can't just, have like, this is assessment week, because I would never have instructional week. So you have to have an assessment, I think, that you can do like during your small group time, so that you can assess like during your instruction. And so what I love about ESGI is that you can assess on the go, and as you're doing activities, you can kind of like track your data for the kids and then print out these wonderful reports, and it will help you group kids and do all the things that you need to do for this. But because the system is so friendly, number one, you can make up your own assessments on that platform. But what we've done actually, I collaborated with Jake Daggett, who is a brilliant literacy specialist. We actually created a series of almost 40 science of reading aligned assessments that cover all of those skills for the science of reading. And so no matter what grade level your kiddos are at, no matter if they're above grade level or below, you have all the assessments that you would ever possibly need that would align with a science of reading aligned instructional approach.
Yeah, Holly. Yeah, I just want to highlight something that you've kind of been talking about. I think is really important to pull out here is we are not giving the same assessment to every kid. So there is that awful, scary D word in there, differentiation, right? I know I'm going to get bashed by someone for this one, but there is some truth to it. All right, we still have to differentiate in this whole big ball that we've been talking about, because like Holly mentioned, there's not like this is the first grade skill, this is the second grade skill. No, these are the skills that good readers possess. You have students who are far below where some of the others are. You also have students who are way on the other side. So yes, we need to be aware and responsive to where those students are. And so by using ESGI, we can truly differentiate our progress monitoring as well. This is not like using the curriculum that says, all right, everyone go ahead and take, assessment 2.1 right now, because that works for some kids and it doesn't for others. So at least as we're trying to strategically mark growth, ESGI is going to let us do that, because every kid can have a different assessment tied to them. Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to extract.
Oh no, that's great. And I do feel like a lot that there are some options within the ESGI system that I know I didn't originally know about. I love the assessments. I love how I could keep and track data on individual students. But what I have loved the most since shifting to the science of reading, and administrators, if you want to lighten the load for your teachers, this is what will do it. If you give these assessments, it will tell you which skills students have mastered, and you can go back to your scope and sequence and know what should be instructed on next. But the great part is after you've assessed your whole class, there are this system of reports, and you can get all of the help and understanding how to actually do this through ESGI, your support specialist there. But there are special reports that you can print out, and it will literally take kiddos who are struggling with the same skills and put them in groups for you. So if you don't know how you should be doing small group instruction, like ESGI will do all of that work for you and tell you, hey, these are the 4 kids that need this skill, supported. These kids right here don't really have any understanding of this skill, so you could group these for this. And so, yeah, super supportive, and it just saves so much time, and you can do them on the go during just regular classroom instruction too. So, and I feel like in order to be successful with the science of reading, you have to know where your kids are. So you have to be able to track this data, and it's just the easiest way to get it done, I feel like. So.
Awesome. Well, that kind of leads me into my next question here, and I'm wondering, I know we've kind of talked about like the science of reading and how ESGI can help teachers know exactly where they are and where their kiddos are. Do you guys have any strategies that you might be able to recommend to administrators if they're wanting to implement science of reading and they're just not quite sure where to begin, but they want to be successful? Like, what advice would you give them of where to start and maybe a couple strategies?
I think Holly already hit the first one. Come to Elevate Your Classroom. We'll give you all the strategies there. But there are, all plugging aside, there are conferences out there, of course, and the internet is, anything you need in this world, you can find on the internet. So it's really about just taking personal responsibility and ownership over and saying, you know what, if I truly want to implement this, I need to be knowledgeable. If I want to be knowledgeable, I got to put the grind in. And so that grind is going to be reading, watching videos. And I do recommend watching videos on what it looks like. There's some great YouTube videos out there of teachers actually modeling that direct, explicit instruction, which is a core component of this framework. And so it's just about putting your due diligence in. I gave kind of a recommendation before with Hegarty, just as a personal shout out, but there's so many programs out there that are certainly valid and reliable that have been proven to have signs of reading as its framework, as a part of the fabric of that framework of their program. I would also say, if you are a school leader, aim for your best teachers. That's always my recommendation for anything new. My insider secret has always been find your best teachers to pilot it. Your weaker teachers are already struggling. They're struggling with classroom management. They're struggling with instruction. They're struggling with just keeping their own personal life balanced. Your best teachers, unfortunately, often do get the new stuff put on their plate. So I do want to acknowledge that, because that is a negative side of this. All right, so I want to acknowledge and call out that that's not always a good thing to be the best teacher in the school, because you often get all these new things put on you. However, a conversation, a honest, maybe something, a give and take. All right, so instead of putting all new things on them, say, hey, I wouldn't mind taking this off your plate if you're willing to try this, or if you're willing to try this, maybe I can be in there with you. So giving some support to that teacher who you want to pilot it. Once they pilot it, I'm a big believer in kind of the fishbowl approach. And so I often, with my own staff, I would have other teachers come and observe, not in a got you, not in a this is the person on the pedestal. Never. No, this is a we are learning from each other, because guess what? After you get a chance to watch and you start implementing, people are going to be coming to watch you. So it's about, I'm going to go back to culture. It's about a culture. All right, so we're talking about a culture of instruction now. And so this culture is going to allow your teachers to observe, learn, and take back from each other. That's a really important shift for me. So if you're looking to up your instruction, change or shift your instruction, I would also encourage you to parallel that with that shift in culture for the reasons I just mentioned. Holly, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say it's super interesting. In all of my experiences, I would say that when people start to learn a little bit about science of reading, you typically will have one of two reactions. You'll have, like, I don't understand this. I wasn't trained in this. I feel overwhelmed. It's too much. And then you'll have, wait, what? This is kind of interesting. And you'll find these people who might not know it all, but are like passionate about it. And so if you see that fire lit in someone, as an administrator, you can't do it all either. So like watch for that fire to ignite, because you will have teachers in your building that they're like, oh, like I had been teaching, probably 18 years before I started to learn all of this. And I love it, because I'm like, oh, this makes it exciting again. This is a challenge. I want to take that on. And so my administrator, I was just blessed enough that he saw that and was like, run with it, And so take advantage of those people who are on fire, because you won't have to like convince them, or, it won't be burdening them. It'll be like, releasing them to go and do something super exciting. The other thing that I would definitely say is, yes, this isn't a shift, but educate yourself enough to know how this shift is going to make things easier for teachers, because yes, there'll be a learning curve, but I am telling you that if you understand the science of reading like shift, it will actually lighten the load for teachers, because they don't have to figure everything out, and they don't have to like recreate everything. there's a scope and sequence. There's a roadmap for you to get these kids who are struggling to reading proficiency. And so it actually lightens the load. So always look and highlight those things that are going to be taking things off of teachers' plates, because I think that makes it like super, super attractive for it. But, you know, get that professional development, look for your on fire leaders, and then start to focus in on the things that are going to actually lighten teachers' loads.
Good points.
Those are great suggestions. So now I'm thinking with my admin brain on about, I'm all excited. I want to jump in, but how as an administrator can I advocate for more resources or more support to strengthen that literacy instruction? Any suggestions?
I mean, I would say right out of the gate, most administrators are aware of this, but this is not just a little fad that is super popular now and is gonna like fade away, because it's not just preference. This is like literal science, and we have data to say that this is working. So honestly, I think we're at about 33 states have legislation on this saying that you will have to shift. And so most administrators know that. And so it's always kind of rotten when you feel like you're being forced to do something. However, I will say there are benefits that come with that, because if states are passing legislation, then more than likely they have funding to support it. And so as an administrator, look to your state for funding, but there are so many organizations, philanthropic organizations, that see that we're at a crisis in our country with our literacy levels, and they're willing to put money behind it. I mean, I'll just say personally, at our university, I wrote a grant last year and we got $500,000 for our little university to support local teachers and schools in like shifting towards the science of reading. So there's a lot of grant money. There are a lot of resources out there. It's incredible what educational companies are doing to improve their resources. Even getting to conferences where you can go in the expo halls and talk to these companies and see what's out there. There's a ton of resources out there, and there are a ton of even free professional development things too. So I would say start there at your state level, and let the internet be your friend.
Well, and we could, yeah, so that's a great point, Holly. There's a lot of free stuff out there, so let's not overlook free. That's everyone's favorite price. YouTube is a great place there. Go ahead, Holly.
I think I was going to say real quick about that is the reason that there is a lot of free quality things out there is because there's a lot of federal funding that is supporting a lot of research and a lot of these like free open resources that teachers can go and access. So that's the reason a lot of this stuff is free. There's a lot of junk out there too, so be careful. But that's why you'll see more free webinars and trainings on this, because it's being federally funded.
You do have to vet. I mean, you have to be a filter and be responsible with your intake of content. But I'll also drill down, you know, Holly was talking about the state and federal level. I'll drill down to the school level. As a principal, you have some discretionary funds. If you are a Title I school, you will have Title I funds that need to be allocated appropriately. And there is always opportunity for funds that can go towards curriculum and professional development. So that's certainly a choice, even if you're not a Title I. I've been at Title I and not Title I schools, and there's certainly ways to manipulate budgets either way. If you do have a strong PTA, for instance, they might be willing to fund maybe professional development or conferences or certain trainings that you might come across. I know for me as a principal, my goal was to never say no to a teacher who wanted to attend a conference or a PD or a training of some sort. You know, if you are interested enough to ask me, I should at least have the courtesy of trying my best to find the money to send you. So the absolute worst someone can say is no, right? And so asking never hurts. And the power of yes is still, I think, embedded in many people. I hope. I'm being very optimistic tonight, but the power of yes is still there for a lot of organizations, community organizations, and universities as well. Holly gave a shout out to her university. I'll give one to mine as well. We have a literacy center associated with mine. So there are resources out there. Yes, it does take a little bit of searching and seeking sometimes, but it is out there.
Those are great suggestions. And I'm just looking over, some of the questions that were sent in before we got started. And one of them stands out to me, and I'm wondering if we might be able to provide a couple examples or suggestions. The third through fifth graders coming in that don't quite have those foundational reading skills, and they're coming into classes with limited skills, and third through fifth grade teachers, that's not necessarily their roadmap. Any suggestions on what we might be able to tell administrators or tell teachers that are on tonight of what they might be able to do?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you have if you've done even like the initial readings on the science of reading, and you understand that through all this research that we've done and been doing literally for like decades, and now we're like putting it all together, we do know pretty much exactly what it takes to be a proficient reader. We also know a lot of how the brain actually stores information, and so how instructional ways that we bring these like lessons to life can be done more like efficiently and productively. Okay, so we have these skills, and the goal is that if everything goes well, we would be able to teach kids these skills in kindergarten, first and second grade, so that by the time they're in third grade, they have these foundational skills down, and then you can shift from learning to read to kind of like using how to read to learn other things, right? But the fact of the matter is, especially with the pandemic being in our recent past, we've got kids that are older that don't have those foundational skills. However, when they're in third through fifth grade, those teachers, that's not their specialty, is teaching kids the how of reading. And so I would say it might take a little bit of encouragement from an administrator, but changing the mindset in schools that teaching reading is just K through 2, that has to shift. So like I know in our state, I live in Indiana, our state legislation says that it's actually all teachers, even if you've been teaching for like 30 years, K through 6, have to go back and get 80 hours of science of reading training, and then you have to take this new praxis to show that you have this foundational knowledge. So I won't comment on the way everything is being pushed out, but we've got to change the mind shift about it's not just K through 3 teachers that have to teach reading. So we have to give those 3 through 5 teachers support, but that takes a while. So I would think about leveraging your support staff, your instructional aides, things like that, to maybe give more support than traditionally given to those grade levels for that purpose, because you can't just ignore it and say we're just going to work on comprehension now, because the fact of the matter is if they can't decode the words, they're not going to be able to understand it. So we have to get those foundational skills in there. Do you have anything to add, Adam?
That the dog? All right, maybe the dog saying hi. All right, true confession. All right, I think that was a TV show, wasn't it? True confessions here. I am a former 5th grade dropout here. Like, I wanted nothing to do with teaching the foundations of reading. I taught 5th grade for almost a decade, and when those kids came to me with very low reading skills, you know what I did? I blamed every teacher before me, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And I look back now, and yes, I did not give up on it. I worked with them day in and day out, but I was so mad. And I never saw myself as needing to be responsible. That was a long time ago, and certainly not the right approach. As I grew, and certainly as I became an administrator, I took on more responsibility with the I'll call it the negotiation of teaching the foundations of reading in the upper grades. And to Holly's point, I did a lot of what she just mentioned. I had to shift around support staff. We use those kindergarten assistants if your school does have them. I used my reading specialist. I used district people. I used community people. All right. And so, look, if you are willing to come in and help a kid read, I will give you the tools, the resources, the foundational training you need if you are willing to come in and work with them. So I know for me, it's been a long personal journey because I started my career in 5th grade, and I certainly did not see myself as a teacher of foundational reading. I saw myself taking novels, and we were going to do a ton of cool stuff with the novels, but guess what? If that kid can't read the first page of the novel, we're not going to get very far. So I know my personal journey has come a long, long way. And so if you're in that same boat watching, listening right now, I'm with you, I feel you. But the responsibility, as I have definitely grown into, is on all of us. As a principal, you should be in those classrooms. As an assistant principal, coach, instructional person, be in the classrooms, be a resource. Your first question, if you are not a classroom teacher, your first question when you walk into that classroom is, what can I do to help you? If that's not your first question, you're not in the right profession right now. We are there to support what the teachers are doing. And I will go to the grade. You can put that on my epitaph if you want. All right. How can I support you? There we go. My closing word.
What we can't do is say, hey, 3 through 5 teachers, you have to just figure this out. You have to support them. And I think that a lot of times that might take thinking out of the box a little bit. Like I taught at a really small school, didn't have a ton of funding. And we had the same thing. We had middle school teachers that would be the first to admit they're not an expert on teaching kiddos, how to read. And so we had to be creative because we couldn't just hire a bunch of extra support staff. We didn't have the money. So we collaborated because we had a great school culture, honestly. And so what the first grade teacher and I ended up doing is the principal creatively shifted our schedule around. And so we would go in at the end of the day and we would go in and do some foundational reading support in those middle school grades. And those other teachers would come and do another part of instruction for our kiddos that they felt comfortable with. And we ended up kind of, shifting things around. So it's not like anybody was asked to do more, but it was almost like, hey, I'm the expert in early literacy, so why wouldn't you use that expert to help those kiddos who are struggling? It's just that something also had to be taken off of my load. And so you have to look at the gifts that people have within your staff. And if you're willing to think out of the box, I think you can achieve it, but you have to be willing to think out of the box. So
that's right.
Those are perfect suggestions. Any final thoughts, Holly or Adam?
I'll start. I'll say it is never too late to learn something new. And I think that's where we get caught up sometimes. I've been doing this 30 years. I've been doing this since whenever. I've seen all the trends. Yes, I said it myself. All right. I'm not immune to it. All right. I've been doing this a long time. We're not too old to try new things or to learn new things. And I think when we open our mind to that, we can really make a big difference.
And if you shift your mindset, it can be super exciting to do something new. I know that when you've taught for a long time, you can feel like you kind of get in a rut. So maybe if you look at making a shift as a way to find a new spark, that's really what I did. And it's I think it's really exciting. The other thing that I would say out there to teachers or administrators, you can be in a school or a district and surrounded by people, but feel very, very alone. And so maybe you're the teacher out there that you want to make the shift, but your district isn't going there, your principal isn't going there, or maybe you're a principal, but your district isn't going there. Seek out to find your support system, your people. I think finding a community that will walk with you through this process is so important. And there are a lot of great communities out there that are willing to do that. I mean, I'm in Facebook groups. just our organization at Elevate, I know we're kind of plugging that, but it is not a sales pitch. I'm not a salesperson. It's honestly because if you find your people, they'll support you, and you can share resources, and making that shift can be exciting, positive. You know, you get a culture of people, even if they're not in your building. So I would say take advantage of that. And if you're out there watching this, then you have some interest in the science of reading. And if you don't know where to find your community, you just found them. So if you follow Adam and I, we can hook you up with the right groups and the right people that will support you through this. So
love that. Love that. Thank you so much for those words. We have a little bit of time left, so we're going to go ahead and open it up to a couple questions. If any of our participants have some questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. And we promise that if we don't get to all of them, then of course we will get answers to those questions for you. So we'll see if anything's going to come in here.
And as everyone's thinking, I will put a plug in for Holly because she's too modest to say it. But Holly and our friend Jake Daggett created a wonderful Science of Reading Academy course at Elevate Your Classroom. And so if you are looking for that affordable professional development, you can head over to elevateyourclassroom.com and you can check out their series that they created on the science of reading. She's also got, Holly has an academy for science of writing as well, which is not tonight's topic, but I'm going to give it a plug anyway.
Awesome. Well, we just had one roll in. Let me go ahead and read this. It says, do you recommend any specific curriculum aligns with the science of reading?
Okay. Yes, I could, but I think what might be better, like I could tell you what I like the most, but I'm always kind of hesitant to just throw out a specific name because I don't know what your district makeup is and all of that. Let me put in a plug that I guarantee you will work all of the time. I am actually on the board of the Reading League Indiana. If you are looking into shifting and you don't know what curriculums are rock solid or what other resources, supplemental resources, any of those things, go to the Reading League, okay? Just Google it. They have a website that is amazing. They have a page on their website where they have reviewed many different like reading programs at all different levels, intervention programs, you know, kindergarten programs, phonemic awareness programs, comprehensive programs. You can get on there and see how they've been rated and which ones are truly aligned, because like we said, there's a lot of stuff out there on social media, and let me tell you, because this is a trending topic, everybody is stamping science of reading on everything just to make money. Okay, it's sad and it's dangerous because we don't want you to waste your money on things that aren't great. That's why if you're following people, make sure that you're following people that really know what they're talking about. But if you go to the Reading League's website, it could be like a rabbit hole for several hours. But if you're looking for decodables, if you're looking for, you name it, go to that site and it will provide you with tons of information. And if you're looking at more of a, you know, how can I find, I've read this about the science of reading. What does it look like in action? You can always come to Elevate because we're always doing everything in alignment with the science of reading there. But a website you can check out is Reading Rockets and Reading Universe. Those are great sites for looking up topics, but you can click and they will show you videos, examples. All of it is rock solidly aligned with research. So you can see it brought to life, like Adam was talking about earlier. Like, I get it in writing, but what does it look like in the classroom? So those are some great resources I would start with.
So I'm not going to add any, Holly's suggestions are perfect. I'm just going to add a note, and this is important for everyone to hear. There is no such thing as a perfect curriculum. There is no curriculum out there that will 100% fulfill every need that you have. There will always be a hole. You will always find a gap. you will always find something that can be better. And so if you are looking for the perfect curriculum, you will not find it. If you have a sales rep that sells you on the best perfect curriculum, run the other way. If you are in a position where you get to ask questions to that sales rep, your first question is going to be, tell me about areas or gaps that exist in your curriculum. And if they can't answer it, that's a red flag. All right, there is no perfect curriculum. And so it is up to us as educators to be the professionals and make sure that we are filling in gaps and making sure that we're aligning with our state standards. Because remember, these curriculums are not state specific. And so as a number of states, including my own of North Carolina, does not follow the Common Core. And so we have our own set. And so we are obligated to make sure that we follow our standards. We're not teaching, our test is not based on the curriculum. It's based on the standards. So all that to say, there is no such thing as the perfect curriculum.
Right. That's why I love the science of reading movement, because honestly, it's not about the curriculum. It's about training educators to understand how kids' brains learn. And if you comprehensively train your educators, I mean, yes, certain resources will make their job easier, but I could go in with my knowledge and paper and a pencil and teach kids how to read. Would it be easier if I have the, different programs or materials? Yes, but what should be driving your movement is the solid teacher training, and the resources should just be there to support them. Don't buy a program and expect that program to drive the change. Otherwise, you're going to wait in 5 years and be like, wait, that was a science of reading aligned program. Why isn't our data good? Because programs don't teach, teachers teach. So
great suggestions. All right, one quick last one that I think we have just enough time to answer. What is the address for Reading Academy?
So you're going to want to go to our main page, which is elevateyourclassroom.com. Elevateyourclassroom.com, and then up top on the bar, you're going to see some different tabs. Just click on Academy, and you can find Science of Reading. You could also explore the website there. So elevateyourclassroom.com.
Since he brought it up, I mean, I'll just give a little bit of information. The Science of Reading Academy is broken down into 10 modules. It's all self-paced, it's recorded, so it's teacher-friendly. You can do it at your pace. It's a lifetime membership, and so you can go back and watch it a zillion times if you want to. With the videos, at Elevate, we're not a one-and-done type of professional development place. You don't just go to a workshop and then good luck. As part of that, you're put in a community where you can ask any question about anything, and Jake and I are constantly, we're like your virtual coaches in there, sharing resources with you, answering questions for you. It's incredibly priced because our goal and passion is helping teachers. It's not getting rich. So honestly, like, one teacher can get a lifetime membership for $100, and I guarantee you in the first modules, with each module, there is a research hub that gives you all the research on, it tells you that we're not just telling you preferences, that what all the research is. Then there's a resource hub that gives you things like daily activities to use, sound wall resources. In the first 2 months, I bet you get $300 worth of downloads, and so it's well worth it. For a school license, a lifetime school license, say you have, doesn't matter, 20 or 40 teachers, a lifetime school license that you could use forever for your teachers for the academy is $1,000. So I mean, you cannot get a better priced, I feel like, training on that. So and again, that's lifetime support with the videos, the resources, and you always have access to ask us personal questions. So
Great suggestion. So I just, on behalf of ESGI, we are so grateful for you guys for doing this for us tonight. I just want to remind everyone that we do these once a month. So stay tuned for, future webinars. We'll chat again soon. Thanks so much, Adam and Holly.
I just encourage everybody to look at, if you're on ESGI, definitely check those Science of Reading assessments because you will love them.